boys and girls, Miss Canastra here. Before you do the foldable for the next part of the web quest, I thought it would be a good idea for us to look at the Prezi that we did in class with notes a few weeks ago on the 8 processes of living things. So after we review the Prezi together, I can show you how to make a foldable on 4 out of the 8 processes of a living thing that's at your house or in your yard. So before we get started, let's think about what an organism is. So an organism is a living thing that is made up of organized parts. So an example of an organized part would be cells or organs. And plants have cells, people have cells. All living things are made up of tiny organized parts. The first process of living things is being able to grow larger. So all living things can grow larger. Think about when you were a baby, or if you have any siblings or a puppy. That puppy's going to grow into a dog, and a baby's going to eventually grow up into an adult. So all living things can grow. All living things use food for energy. So remember how we talked about in class, there are different types of consumers. So omnivores, like humans, eat plants and meat. There's also carnivores that eat only meat, and herbivores that eat only plants. And plants are known as producers because they make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. So all living things need food for energy, and we get our energy from the food we eat, and plants get the energy they need from the sun. Living things can repair injury to themselves. I think this one is really cool because our bodies are constantly repairing. If you have a paper cut or a bloody nose, those aren't going to last forever. Your body is going to repair the injury. If the sea star in the picture or the starfish lost a limb or a leg, and it's actually going to be able to grow that leg or limb back. And I know that we've talked about some students having lizards, and lizards can usually grow their tails back. So all living things can reproduce themselves. They all have a life cycle. And all living things can undergo change. So things are going to evolve. So if we look at the picture of the horses over time has changed a lot. And it has to do with their surroundings. It has to do with the things that they're eating, their habitat. We evolve if we lived, say, in Alaska and then moved to New England, we would have to adjust to the different season changes and the climate changes. And we would be able to adapt to that because we are able to change or undergo change. All living things can move. But remember, boys and girls, it means that they can move on their own. So the plant in the picture is actually moving towards the sunlight so it can get its food for energy. It is growing towards the sun, which is another process. It's moving and it's responding to the sunlight, which also is a process. We move by moving our legs, moving our arms, walking, running, things like that. Okay, all living things respond to their surroundings or their environments. So in this picture, we have a flower during the daytime and the petals are open. And then in this photo, we have a plant at night, the same type of flower, and it's actually closed because it is not looking for that sunlight. We respond to our surroundings by catching a ball that's thrown at us. We're using our reflexes. Or when we touch a hot stove, our hand instantly pulls back because we know that we would get burned. So it's our body responding to those types of things. All living things have a limited lifespan and will Remember how I said that each thing goes through a life cycle? And before we finish up, let's just talk about living, non-living, and dead things. So all living things go through these 8 processes and can live on their own. They're parts of organisms such as leaves on a plant or fingers on a human, and also considered alive as long as they're still attached. So let's say if I lost a few pieces of hair on my head and they're now in my brush. Those things were once living, but once they detach from my head, they are no longer alive. The same way a branch from a tree, once it is snapped and on the ground, it is no longer considered a living thing. A non-living thing does not go through the 8 processes, and they never will be or never have been alive. So water, yes, water grows. Fire grows. A lot of things may grow or move or respond, but they will never have all 8 processes. They're not going to be alive or considered a living thing. And lastly, boys and girls, if something is dead, it was once living, but it isn't anymore. Something can be considered dead if it's not part of the living organism anymore. It could be a fallen leaf or a feather or hair in a brush, like I said. And remember, once things are processed, they are no longer considered a dead thing. So if we're talking about tree that's being manufactured into form paper, paper is not considered a dead thing because it went through the manufacturing process. It went to a factory. But if we found a stick or a log on the ground, we would consider that a dead thing. So thank you for watching my presentation. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys go to the next section where I'm going to teach you how to make a foldable.